Good afternoon, this is Raechel Reed from ThunderbayLive.com. I'm in the studio at the Art Gallery on St. Paul Street here with Joseph LeBlanc, and he's from the Green Party for this up here in North Riding?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So give us a little background about who Joe is.
Sure, so I've been living here in Thunder Bay for 12 years now. I came here for school and fell in love with the region. I've been working everywhere. You know, I've been kind of like stomping Tom, been everywhere, man.
Nice.
And I spent a lot of time in the region. I've seen a lot of what happens when, you know, our needs are ignored. And yeah, so I decided to run. I'm a father of 3 young children, and I really believe in the platform that the Green Party is offering, but also in offering an alternative for Northern Ontario that would be a strong voice to advocate for the needs here in the north and ensure that our children have the same opportunities that we do now.
That's awesome. So what does the Green Party stand for? Like, what's their motto?
Sure. So generally putting the people in the places that we love first, right? And this is something that really resonates with me, and I know resonates with a lot of people. There's a lot of talk from the other parties about the Ring of Fire, and the reality is the Ring of Fire is not a place. The Ring of Fire is a concept, right? And we have to ensure that the concepts we have for development fit with the people and the places that we love. And so, you know, starting to look at the short and long-term future and ask some questions really that are about that and about how people benefit from these resources, but also have a say in the decision making that impacts their lives on a daily basis.
Oh, that's awesome. And now the Green Party has come out with their platform. Now, what key issues does their platform have? Like, give us a couple of.
Certainly. So some of the stuff that resonates here with Northerners is proportional representation, right? Ensuring that we have an electoral system that has regions like Northern Ontario that, you know, for example, our riding is 80,000 square kilometers. That's larger than 133 independent nations in the world.
Oh, wow.
So really, with a system like proportional representation, we'd have more representation in Toronto. The North, which represents 87% of the province as a whole, only has 7 of the 107 seats. So proportional representation really does speak to the needs we have in that way.
Oh, that's right.
As well as the concept of a guaranteed annual income. So we're the only party that's pushing this, and it's a concept that works very much like a negative income tax. So it would replace social assistance programs and ensure that all Ontarians have a guaranteed annual income that is at the poverty level now. So this concept came from an experiment, a social experiment that was done in Manitoba in the 70s.
Okay.
And the outcome of that was quite surprising. It really did allow people to stay in school longer. It addressed a lot of the costs that was involved in social assistance programs. So as you can imagine, running these systems involves a huge bureaucracy to do that. And really is, if you're aware of what the social assistance program is here in Ontario, is a one-size-fits-all model. So in no way does it account for the cost of living. And in Ontario, we have over 30 remote First Nations and a lot of rural communities where the cost of living is higher than it would be in Toronto or other areas. So for us to have a standardized social assistance program here really does leave Northerners aside in that process.
So you're pretty much meaning that it's as it stands right now, the social system, the social services system, do you believe that it kind of is sustaining, whoever's on it, to not move forward?
Oh, certainly. I think, we talk about being caught in a poverty trap, right? And what that means is, the way that Ontario works is administered. If somebody is gifted money or is able to save money and wanting to get an apartment or move in or out of a particular community, they claw that back, right? And so in doing that, we prevent people from helping themselves and to move forward. A guaranteed annual income provides the stability that people really do need and can build upon, and could, like in Manitoba, help to support people to do things that they love to do and to take risks, right? A big part of the party platform is supporting small businesses, and certainly
That's fantastic.
There's an opportunity with the guaranteed annual income to allow people to take those risks to invent something new or provide a service that needs to be done without taking a huge personal risk to do that. And
Well,
so,
it's expensive, right?
Yeah,
And you have
exactly.
to have a certain amount of capital in order to
That's right.
get yourself
That's right.
going.
Yeah, and so some of the other things that really do resonate here, the pipeline pledge. So we're the party that is supporting no new pipelines here in Ontario, and unfortunately, I haven't heard much talk about that. Really, we have the Energy East proposal that will, if successful, displace natural gas in the pipeline that exists in Northern Ontario and replace it with.
Explain a little bit more about that. I'm not really understanding what it's all about.
What they're wanting to do is to convert the existing natural gas pipeline, which pushes gas through it in that form, to something that will transport dilbit, which is basically a raw product from the oil sands, and then it will pass through. They need to add, I believe it's 1,400 kilometers onto that pipeline to reach the east coast, where it will then be shipped to the rest of the world to be processed somewhere and likely used somewhere else. And so in doing that, we've had a couple public meetings here. I'm fully aware that it is a federally regulated thing, but Ontarians do have an opportunity to speak up in that process. Ontario is hosting its own consultations around that, but as we've seen with forest tenure and some other consultations that happen, there's a cost involved to travel to Thunder Bay to give your say, and really it's very much on paper and take away from that. So with the Energy East proposal, what the huge risk is that these two products behave very differently when they're spilled. Dilbit is very heavy and will sink to the bottom of waterways, whereas natural gas will dissipate into the atmosphere. And what we're very much concerned about is that there are very few municipalities that this will be passing through. So the cost of cleanup really does have to be accounted for somewhere. And what Northern Ontarians are asking is, what happens to our energy prices when our source of natural gas is displaced?
That's right.
In that proposal, we still have yet to see where are we going to get natural gas from if this pipeline is converted. So that's one of the issues that really does resonate with people, and we're hoping to put it on the agenda in this election. Community forestry is another. We had a forest tenure reform process that happened a couple of years ago. To address the downturn and ensure that there is a forest industry at all in Northern Ontario. Unfortunately, the process that happens is a couple of meetings in Thunder Bay. The minister comes and says hi, and I understand your needs, and leaves, and allows the staff to fill out the forms and work with you to get your ideas. And
so that's like a more of
right?
kind of like an informal thing that's just passed.
Yeah, and it really does represent that sort of token gesture that we see from the conventional politics in Ontario, which is we have to do something in the north, and having a few meetings here or developing a special caucus that facilitates these meetings really does leave us having to travel great distances. As people in the region know, having a meeting here in Thunder Bay might as well be in Toronto if you're living in places like Airland or Ganuguming or Red Rock, and so really, how do we ensure that local people have a local voice? And one of those ways is community forestry. The outcome of that was the local forest management corporations. That sounds good on paper, but the directive for those corporations to sell as much wood as possible still doesn't include the concept of community-based forestry, which is ensuring that all values are managed for.
Right.
We used the example, which is a hot topic this year, moose management and moose populations. So a lot of people are upset at the tags being reduced this year, and I understand that. And it's a symptom of the way that we manage our forests. We manage our forests for timber values first, and include food values like moose as a secondary or tertiary focus. So, really what the concept of community forestry and the larger principle that the Green Party is standing for, which is to stop selling off our natural resources, is to ensure that sell-off is prevented, and that there are people in the communities that benefit community forestry can have other values like hunting and fishing values, trapping values, recreational values included as something to be managed for. and really, if we want the moose population to be here for our children and to be able to utilize and to ensure that they're there, we have to start managing for moose and not managing for wood first and then moose second. Right?
That's right.
So we've seen where that approach has taken us. I mean, people have experienced what the companies have done in breaching the social contract, right? And communities like Manitowoc, for example, that were built by mining companies, those days are going now. And what we'll see in Ring of Fire is a number of bush camps, and really, I hope to see some support for the local communities. But with the mobility that we do have in those industries, I really do think that we have to start to look at the short and long-term future. One of the key issues that we've been advocating for is the development of a rail system into Ring of Fire that would be operated by the Ontario Northland Rail Company. Ontario Northland, if you've been to Moosonee or traveled that rail, it's turned that center into a distribution hub. There's a number of companies and communities that ship food out of there, or that get it on the ground as far as possible.
That's an expense.
Certainly, yeah. But you look at in the long run, maintenance on a dirt road will be neutral at 10 years as far as building the rail.
Okay.
And a lot of people like myself have been on the bush roads a lot and see the environmental impact of them. You see that dust along the edges and a significant impact on wildlife populations, but also a hazard with the large trucks on there. So what really is the reality, and originally I come from Sudbury and understand what ore is, and that's big rocks, right? And so what they're talking about is taking out big rocks to be processed elsewhere. So we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of trucks running on a very long dirt road with a huge environmental impact. A lot of, we've seen this focus on sort of the quick and the dirty and get the investment in there and do it now. We're not by any means anti-development. We're very much thinking, like I say, in the short and long-term future. So looking at something like an electrified rail or a rail system that's operated by Ontario Northland ensures that there is that long-term investment and that communities can benefit from that. The cost of building a service road beside that rail line is much less when the rail is in already, and we understand communities want access. It's ironic to hear what's happening in Pikangikum, and I can't help but wonder if they had minerals under them, whether they'd be feeling that left out, right?
True.
And so we know places like Webequie and Fort Hope, Edmonton, have been looking at things like a road access for a long time and advocating for a better winter road system. But until they found billions of dollars under their feet, really those concerns have been left unanswered. So we do have to look to what the impacts on the surrounding First Nations will be as well, and that's one of the things that the minister talks about. This as if it's a done deal, right? They've addressed what Metal's concerns and they've set this framework in place. But there is that large burning question as to say, well, what about the others that are downriver? I know Mushkegowuk Council has expressed some concern over that.
So it's not all said and done. It's not.
Well, and we all know that the warriors in the communities will have their say if they're not happy, right? And so by no means is it all said and done, and that language is opportune for the election, but certainly we know the realities of development in the north, and that we know that community members will assert themselves and set that project back if need be, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that as a government we need to be aware of. So, this is something that I talk with people about, and ensuring that their choice on June 12th really does have a strong voice for the North. I've heard a lot of people talk about voting for the Greens as being a wasted vote or a split vote from the others, or
why do you think that the Green Party is getting a little bit of flack about that?
Well,
and is it because some people aren't as familiarized with the Green Party as opposed to
Oh, certainly, yeah, and and there's things that happen in the election that like we had the issue with CBC this morning and the three major
right. There
parties
was a
participating.
debate for CBC this morning.
Yeah, that's
okay.
right. That's
And
right.
how did that go?
Well, I made it as far as the lobby, and I tried. You know, and I tried to have our voice and really share what was happening. And unfortunately, they had decided, like many others, that the three parties with sitting people were the I guess the legitimate option to present to people, right? And my concerns with that are not that, you know. Not necessarily that all voices are there, but that, you know, CBC or media organizations do the best to ensure that there is some opportunity for that voice to be heard at some point. So
Right.
I'm hopeful that after this they will offer an opportunity for the Greens to share our perspective. You know, I understand there's infrastructure constraints or whatever, but there is some really valid things that the Green Party is saying, and if we're making any ground, it will be places like Northern Ontario, where people are fed up with conventional politics and conventional politicians and the system
That's
that
right.
exists. You know, I think you asked, you know, what we're hearing from people. But generally, that's what it is. You know, I'm not going to lie. What people say is, "I don't vote," or "I don't know there's an election," or you know,
This is
the
like
majority of people
the
are,
majority of,
yeah,
of
are
the
not
people
saying,
that
you
are
know,
going door to door.
yeah, certainly, I'm not saying we need the Ring of Fire going right now. You know,
Right.
people are saying, well, our needs are not being heard. I've heard a lot about access roads, for example, and that's something that I've been really thinking a lot about, and traveling these roads and hunting and fishing and working with communities. We see what that deterioration leads to, right?
Right.
And these are not solely industrial roads, right? And the big one that comes to mind is the road between Manitowoc and Greenstone, which has been closed for a while. But at what point does the government step up and take responsibility for these things, right? You know, we'll 6-lane a highway in the States before we, you know, grade a dirt road in the north.
Yeah, for sure.
And one of the things I've been advocating for as a representative here, as a hopeful representative here, is the designation of some type of heritage road system, right? That a lot of these roads were built for a long time under the expectation that somebody would maintain them. So people, you know, build camps down those roads,
Yeah.
and they make investments in the region. You know, certainly mobility for entering the workforce, or, you know, accessing healthcare or recreational opportunities like fishing derbies and other things is prevented by that. So some type of heritage road designation that would say, you know, that the existence of these things needs to continue, and that they do play a significant role in this social and economic system here in Northern Ontario.
Right.
So, you know, these are some of the things that we've been advocating for. Certainly, as a hopeful local representative here, I've been talking with a lot of people about the concept of devolution. I hear and myself have leaned towards supporting some separate form of governance here in the north. I talked about 7 ridings versus 107, and you know, there's the NOLA movement and the separation movement. But in that, you know, I see some potential issues, but certainly in looking at devolution of decision-making authority to the region is really where we need to start to go, and that can be done. And certainly, you know, what we talk with people about is what one Green MPP can do if they give us a chance, right? And at the basic level is introduce legislation like the concept of guaranteed annual income that the other parties have to vote on, and, you know, whether they vote no on it, it becomes a public record. But some of these ideas are very meaningful and could make significant change. And certainly, if we look then to see what one Green MPP can do for Thunder Bay Superior North, is then as well introduce legislation that does support northern issues and provide some focus on these things. So I'm hopeful that people think that way on June 12th and give us a chance to do that.
That's awesome, absolutely fantastic. And also, I think politics also needs to have a voice in there that's going to kind of shake up the sugar tree a little bit. Right?
Well, certainly, yeah. Thanks for giving me the opportunity
For sure.
to talk.
Again, thank you very, very much. It was a pleasure.
Great.
Again, this is Raechel Reed from ThunderBayLive.com, and we're with Joseph LeBlanc. Thanks very much. Have a good one.
Bye.